The government will not give you the deed to your home. They can give you a copy, but they'll not give you the deed. So who owns your home? If you don't pay your taxes, they come take your home. So we don't own any property. That's just a joke. So the thing is, people should be outraged by this. When you have the public schools teaching kids that they're not teaching the Constitution at all. Kids today I talk to can't even tell me what won freedom in the First Amendment. These are law students that I work with. They cannot, when they graduate from law school, they're in law, they cannot tell me. Lawyers I talk to, so-called civil liberties lawyers, have trouble articulating the Fourth Amendment. They don't teach it. Why aren't they teaching it? Because they don't want rebellion.
Welcome back to Finance and Liberty and Reluctant Preppers. We have a first-time guest today. John Whitehead is the founder of the Rutherford Institute. He's a constitutional attorney. He's been in practice for 40 years, upholding constitutional rights and personal liberties. John, thanks for joining us this first time on Finance and Liberty.
Hey, thanks for having me on, sir.
We wanted to get you to weigh in on an article that you recently wrote about impeach the government, not just any particular candidate, but the government as a whole. Why is that something of concern at this time?
Well, the government we have right now, is if you followed it through the last current presidents, has obliterated our Bill of Rights. I mean, we are under total surveillance. That violates the Fourth Amendment. I mean, police are watching social media accounts. Schools now work with a program where they're watching kids 24 hours a day. If a kid actually does an email or a text message that they might consider to be off balance or something, they're calling kids in the next day. So everybody's being watched. We're being watched. As you walk along the street, geospacing, the Google works with the local police. They're watching wherever you go. Digital billboards, by the way, like in Times Square. If you've ever been to Times Square, they pick up everything on your cell phone. They're shooting you ads. So, and then all the corporations, by the way, that control all this, they work intimately with the government. All the information they have is given over to the government, and they have access to it. Even your DNA, like Ancestry.com, groups like that, are giving over almost everything to the local police if they are hunting for some kind of criminal, which could be you. Facial recognition software, at least half of Americans, 1/2 of all Americans are in a facial recognition database now. They're studying us. And under the new HART program, the Homeland Advanced Recognition Technology System program, it's called HART, H-A-T. Under the Trump administration, they're watching everything, your face, tattoos, whatever, trying to set up a pre-crime system so they can get criminals before they do their crime. What's amazing is that in the last 24 years, according to the FBI, crime has dropped 48% in America. So basically across, we're not a criminal society, but the so-called government is creating all these threat assessments. And I mean, the Department of Homeland Security is doing threat assessments on every home in America from green to red. If you have to own a firearm, a legal firearm, you have a red. That explains why some policemen, when they show up in the middle of the night in these SWAT team raids or what they call knock and talks in the middle of the night, are all agitated. They have all that information on their cell phone. If you're a red person, watch out. You could get killed. And people are getting shot through the door, by the way, where the police are doing these knock and talks in the middle of the night looking for somebody or a stolen motorcycle, whatever. In Florida, they were looking for a so-called stolen motorcycle, and they went to a guy's door. He wasn't the guy, by the way, that supposedly had the motorcycle. They're banging on his door. It's an old fellow. He came to the door with a pistol. They shot him through the wall. That's happening in America on a regular basis. 80,000 SWAT team raids occur on an annual basis where cops are going through the door, shooting up to 500 dogs a day. Kids are getting killed. These are all detailed, by the way, in my books, Government of Wolves and Battlefield America, where I go into all this. What I feel we're doing, and not feel, but I know we're doing, we're just repeating the mistakes of past regimes. You can go back to the old Soviet Union. You can go back to Nazi Germany. Very, very similar. I mean, what we're doing when you have our government run by corporations, and I call the government in Washington, D.C. just a corporation. That's basically what it is I've explained to people there was a very, very good study, and I've written on this. People should go to our website at rutherford.org, and read what I've done on this study. A 2014 study by Princeton University with Northwestern University. They studied 20 years, these professors, of all the policies passed in Washington, D.C., and they came to the conclusion, and this is a quote, we live in a oligarchy run by a moneyed elite of about 585 billionaires. And these so-called billionaires are the ones controlling all the contractor work that the government gets. Groups like Microsoft, who now have a $10 billion contract to maintain and keep the intelligence cloud working for all 17 intelligence agencies of the federal government, such as the NSA, CIA. They work with China doing the same thing. Whoa, you have Chinese totalitarian monster government, but Microsoft's working with them in the Pentagon. You don't think they share information? I think that what the corporate state wants, they want a total surveillance state where we're just seen as nothing better than lower animals to them, data bits, whatever you want to call it. We're there. They want our money. It's like the film director John Carpenter. I saw a quote by him who made a really good movie called They Live that illustrates some of these things about the so-called workings behind the government. And he said, I finally figured out what the government wants. They just want your money. You know, the average American now pays more in taxes than they do on food, clothing, and health care. I mean, we're born into that system. That was another thing I've always thought about. I'm born into this system, and I look up, and I got all this stuff coming at me. I'm taxed. I'm forced to go to school 18, 20 years. They put me on the day shift, Bob Dylan quote. Think about it, folks. I'm trying to get people to free their minds and think about these things, you know. You're born into a system. You don't vote for – I don't vote for any of this stuff. And we got these billionaires and millionaires up in Washington, D.C. sitting on their butt getting like Nancy Pelosi. The Republicans, even Donald Trump with all his money, they're getting bottled water and flowers on their desk every day. I'm paying for that kind of crap. We don't have a say in anything. The sad thing is that the American people sit by and watch it happen. They watch 150 hours of television a month on an average. If you're doing that, you might as well forget it. It was what Adolf Hitler said. He says, if I can get people in groups marching, I can control them. They stop thinking. The biggest organized group thing that we have in this country is television. People just sit and watch entertainment, sporting events, and stuff like that while the government's encroaching. And then occasionally someone says, oh, my God, I want to fight back. You're a rebel. You're a dissident. They give you all kinds of terrorists, whatever they want, extremists. And most people don't know this, but the government has a database called Main Core that has over 8 million names in it of people who will be rounded up in times of distress. So we're living in a really weird environment, but like I say, trying to get people to see this, it's like the fellow next door who may be a drunk. You're saying, hey, buddy, you got to wake up. You're killing yourself. He goes, oh, and he goes off and grabs another beer. Trying to wake the people up in this country is very, very difficult. If you're watching, you're not doing it.
You mentioned in your article that this is not about one particular candidate or even a particular party, yeah. and you've talked about this. Several of the last administrations of both parties have participated in this process. Can you describe a little bit more about that?
Oh, I mean, all the executive orders by Obama, Bush pushing again after 9/11 pushes through the U.S. Patriot Act, over 400 pages. It passed in less than a month. It was written before 9/11. People have now told me that's on the inside. They're working government. Of course, it had to be. And most of the congressmen didn't even read it. And it allows the FBI to read all your emails, follow you around, your phone calls, track you, do whatever they want to do. Come in your home while you're not there and download everything off your computer and walk out and don't even tell you. Except national security letters where they make up their own. They go to banks and demand your information. The banks can't even, under these national security letters, they can't even tell you that the government's there watching your money and stuff like that. They've all done it. Now with the Donald Trump administration, we're seeing him giving more military equipment to local police, $600 million here recently, setting up this HART program, this Homeland Advanced Research Technology Center now. It's called HART, H-A-R-T, which will be watching our faces, everything we're doing, trying to see if we're going to be criminals. I mean, all that violates, again, most Americans don't know that violates the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment says you're not supposed to be doing surveillance on American citizens unless you have some evidence of criminality. They watch everything we're doing now, trying to figure out how they can either sell us a product, handicap us, or put us in jail or overtax us. And we are overtaxed, folks.
So the title of your article about impeach the government implies there's action that individuals can take. What together can we do that we aren't doing but must if we want to reclaim any sense of our constitutional rights and liberties?
Well, what you'll have to do is you'll have to stop watching the streaming devices. That would be one thing at least half the time. I'm telling people, you can't. But people, it's an addiction. Most people can't do that, unfortunately. And here's what I explain to people. What is the three words the Constitution starts with? Now, people stumble when I ask them that one. It's we the people. So who is the government? We the people are the government. The dudes sitting up in Washington, D.C., they're not the government. They're supposed to be representing us, but they don't represent us. They represent the money to lead the oligarchy. They do. We know that. I mean, your congressmen spend 3 days a week on phone calls. They go to phone banks and raise money 3 days a week, and we're paying them for that? Come on. And they all become billionaires, I mean, look at Barack Obama now making $100,000 for on Wall Street engagements, speaking engagements. I mean, it's all about money, and we live in a society that pushes that. People, if you listen, large cities of millions of people, the city council meetings, maybe 20 people show up against things that people are getting shot, killed, SWAT team raids, all kinds of crazy things happen in the community. The government will not give you the deed to your home. They can give you a copy, but they'll not give you the deed. So who owns your home? If you don't pay your taxes, they come take your home. So we don't own any property. That's just a joke. So the thing is, people should be outraged by this. When you have the public schools teaching kids that they're not teaching the Constitution at all. Kids today I talk to can't even tell me what won freedom in the First Amendment. These are law students that I work with. They cannot, when they graduate from law school, they're in law, they cannot tell me. Lawyers I talk to, so-called civil liberties lawyers, have trouble articulating the Fourth Amendment. They don't teach it. Why aren't they teaching it? Because they don't want rebellion. And I mean, it's like I say, your brain is useless if your eyes are blind. Our eyes are blind. Most of the American people are not listening, not thinking, and it's up. In the end, you can point your finger and say, that evil man did it, whatever. But if you did nothing at all, if you're not speaking out, you can go, and again, what they fear most are mass movements. I mean, that's why a guy like Martin Luther King, in my opinion, was put down. I mean, he was very, very effective. Finally, his last march, he said, I'm going to shut Washington, D.C. down, basically. He was going to set up camps in Washington, D.C. So he said, it's time for First Amendment activity. That's an important statement. So we can change things. What he meant by that was get up, get off your butts, get those picket signs, get down there and find out what your government's doing. If you're allowing and every local community is having it, people getting shot in the middle of the night by policemen doing SWAT team raids. The local newspaper, by the way, there aren't many local newspapers. 1,800 local newspapers are shut down in the last 10 years, taken over by large corporations. And I've seen it happen in towns where a little newspaper was journalistic. When the corporation, the Jimmy Buffett Corporation takes them over, who takes over a lot of newspapers, they're pro-everything government. They don't do journalism anymore. They don't do investigative journalism anymore. It's shutting down across the country. You're having your news sources controlled by central agencies. 6 major corporations control all the news you receive. And those 6 major corporations work with the government. Oh, my Lord, what are we talking about here? That's why they feed you. They want people walking around, eating, cramming their face, doing whatever they're doing, and they're happy because they got all the power and all the money. It's all about money and power in Washington, D.C. If you get together in your local community, however, and I've seen some communities, they've done away with MRAPs that local police have, which are basically tanks on tires. You can do it, but it's up to you, and it's but getting the American people, that's why it's good that you have a program like this where people like me can, what do you want to call it, blow off steam and talk about these things and try to wake people up. It's time to wake up because there is a government operating underneath all the smiles and crap you see on television, by the way, that is nasty. You'll get shot in the middle of the night if you do the wrong thing these days. And we defend. People can go to our website at Rutherford.org and see all the cases we get involved in where, police drag people out, slam them face down on the ground. They're at the wrong home, but nothing ever happens to the police. But we have clients with smashed faces. So the thing is that it can be changed, but people have to get up off their butts and be willing to do it. And again, we need some national leaders who will get out there and say, let's get to Washington, D.C. And at that point, you'll definitely become an extremist. Watch out.
Several of the points that you hit on there have been spoken to by some of the guests that we've had. We had Daniel McAdams from the Ron Paul Institute on talking about the consolidation of our press, and that if people think that they're getting a diversity of opinions or independent perspectives from the press, they should think again. He said that comparing our current press to that of Stalinist or communist Russia or that sort of thing is that people would be shocked if they realized how controlled the press is that we receive today. Another one was Second Amendment rights. You mentioned the disparity of we, the people, who are supposed to be the masters of the government, who are our representatives and so on, but we had Dr. Edwin Vieira talking about Second Amendment rights where the Constitution called for that the average American citizen needed to be a member of what the definition of militia was that you would be just as well armed as an infantry soldier, and so therefore there's a parity there, and that the government should fear the people and not the other way around. So back to what people can do. Oh, the other thing that you mentioned that rang true is that we're seeing actually evidence of civil unrest in hotspots all around the globe. We've recently had They say the stock market crashed today.
Yeah, I heard that.
Sounds like people's retirement accounts and savings accounts are going to get bailed into the banks.
Yeah.
Looks like pension plans and Social Security are going to get suspended too.
I know.
Sure, I'm glad we decided to put our money into gold and silver instead.
Me too.
Get your gold and silver and support this channel at goldsilver.com/?AFF=RP. Hey Reluctant Preppers, if you want to hear more bonus footage from other guests we've had on, come on over right now to patreon.com/reluctantpreppers and access that bonus footage there. Take care. Reluctant Preppers provides educational awareness and commentary only. Opinions expressed do not constitute personalized financial advice. Viewers are encouraged to do their own research and seek qualified personal financial consultation before making investment decisions.